So the first group is going to be a livestock and grassland discussion group, and the next discussion is going to be arable or tillage, depending on what part of the world you come from. So have some questions prepared. If you do have questions, this one's half an hour long and the next one's half an hour long. Then there'll be a tea break and hopefully we'll have the minister by that stage. So a round of applause, please, for our first lovely panel.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Hannah, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very interesting, if you have been involved, this is the 6th, Niall Collins was saying this morning that this is the 6th BioFarm conference that we've had, and it's rapidly become an institution. If you were here at the very first one in 2018, there wasn't a lot of work been done on the ground in Ireland. It was been done by individual farmers, very much working on their own, without a lot of support, okay? And one of the things that has happened, I know you've attended the virtual conferences in the last 2 to 3 years, but also, over that time, an awful lot of work and progress has been made on the ground, all right? And one of the contributory factors was not just the work of NOTS in education and training, and the different OCBs, the Organic Certification Boards, or bodies, but also the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine in terms of the European Innovation Partnership programs that they put in place. And they did, in fairness to them, they did go out on a limb and they did take a risk with some of the EIPs that were put in place. But there are quite a number of people in the room here that have been involved in those EIPs, and we're delighted to have some of them here. So for the past 5 years, the DANÚ farming group, they've been researching biological farming and how to make biological farming work. Now, I'm involved in third level down in the southeast in SETU in Waterford, and one of the most frequent questions we get asked about the Masters in Organic and Biological Agriculture is, what is biological agriculture? What is biological farming? So really what you're doing is, it's kind of changing your focus. So it's farm management, agronomy and husbandry, animal livestock husbandry, with the focus on optimizing soil biology, okay, and enhancing biological populations in the soil and their function. And this is what Dan Kittredge mentioned at the get-go there this morning. Paul Holmbeck mentioned it as well, as did John Sweeney subsequently. So every speaker so far has actually referred back to this and the importance of it. So the other objective in biological agriculture is to actually reduce the use of synthetic and external inputs, particularly certain fertilizers, and also move away from prescriptive pesticide usage that impede this biological function in the soil, because we need to get these microbes going. And then, of course, the whole thing is about diversity and having living plant covers throughout the entire year where possible. And this is the focus that a lot of farmers have actually engaged with, and we'll get examples of that now. So it's all about diversity and introducing diversity. And then because the soil is the habitat for all of these microorganisms, that we try and reduce or eliminate a lot of the disturbance in these areas. And then we efficiently use some of the natural organic products that we might have, be they biostimulants, biological amendments, but also organic manures from animals, all right? So that's biological agriculture. The focus is on biology, the focus is on the soil, the focus is on improving that function. So we're delighted to have David Wallace here, who was the coordinator of this DANÚ Group EIP project in Ireland, and also different farmers. We've got, this is for the grassland section, we've got Coleman Deely, Michael Costello, Kenny Roberts, Stuart Rogers and Donald Sheehan here beside me. So what I might do is, in turn, I might ask each one of you to just give a brief explanation about your farm, about your farming system, and why you got involved in the DANÚ EIP to begin with. All right, and we start over on the right-hand side as you're looking with Stuart Rogers, and Stuart, where you're from and the farm size and that. You okay?
Is that on?
Yeah, that's working fine.
I'm a grassland farmer, and I was producing forage for animals for the equine end of things. And over the last probably 7 years, I was involved with all these lads here, and at different courses and stuff and workshops. And so then we came together through David Wallace, and we came up with the DANÚ group and the EIP and the funding to do this. And each of the farmers in the group were, we weren't funded personally, which gave us the ability to do what we wanted to do and how we wanted to run the farm. So for me, with the forage, I was trying to get away from artificial fertilizer and producing a nutrient-dense forage, which in turn meant that I had to look at the systems, and then the project fitted into that perfectly, because with the plots, we had 4 plots. We had the first plot would be Chaga's Green Book NPK system. Then the second plot would be a carbon plus NPK. Then the third plot is just a mineral balancing of the soil into a fourth plot, which is mineral balancing and everything else, which biology and stuff like that. So that kind of sector fitted in with me. And as the project progressed over the number of years, I moved that out to the whole of the farm of the number of the plot 4, and I could see the benefit of using the biological system, which in turn produces that nutrient-dense forage, which I could see back in the animals, and along with diversity, that has increased the quality of the feed. So, as that in turn, we're working with all the different conditions, like the weather and the type of the year and the type of growth in the grass, which has all an effect, and results can get varied over the period of time. And it's not just over a 5-year basis. It's over, the way I see it, over the lifetime of the farm and my lifetime of farming. So it has changed my perspective of farming, and through that I've gone into the organic system, and which has helped me greatly. And as the future goes on, hopefully will benefit me greatly.
So, as I understand it, you've no stock then? So
I've stocked now. Since I've moved in, I've gone away from the forage. I've brought in a flock of sheep. I've brought also rotation of tillage as well. So that everything is adding to the whole system of biodiversity, of bringing that biology, building the biology, trying to build that the farm is more sustainable.
Okay, excellent. Coleman.
Yeah, yeah. I'm relatively local here. I'm 25 minutes back the road there outside Newcastle West. Coleman Deedy is the name. When I came into this group first, I was very fortunate, just through making contacts and talking. It was actually John McEwen Leash put me onto the group, who was one of the guiders of the foundation of the DANÚ group. And I was very fortunate to get in this group. I was a conventional dairy farmer at the time, and look, Stuart has given you a good outline of what we were engaging in, but it was, in reality, the biggest thing for me in this group, and along with the others, I could say, was the opening of our minds. I mean, at the start, you have such basic, I won't say basic, but rudimentary questions of getting your head around what biological farming is. You know, what about the weeds? How do we grow the grass? You know, these questions that everybody asks the first time when you talk about changing the systems that the only system that you're really aware of or that you've seen working. I mean, like, sure, we can all read articles in magazines and see things on the web and whatever, but you haven't seen this in practice on the ground. So joining this group over the last 5-6 years has given us the opportunity, through our own farms and through other farmers, to actually, with expert guidance and the best knowledge of the best brains in biological farming around the world, through BioFarm and through our group as well, to try and implement some of these in the trials on our own farm and see what works for us practically, what's suitable, and to get a feel for it. And really, I would still feel still only at the start of the journey 5 years later, and But the big thing that has changed over the 5 years is my mindset, and my patience, and my tolerance and how I view results now. Before, you would almost take things personally, whereas now a result is a result and you want to understand the result rather than saying, I don't want that in the field beside the road. If the neighbours see this, or what will they think, or if they see me doing this now at this weather or this time of the day, or if they, God forbid, they'd see me looking at a full moon or something, and, whereas now you're
and
actually...
do you?
Yeah. In a different light. I'm understanding what the full moon means. So I suppose, and it's like a lot of people, we're all at different stages in this room. There's people here that have spent a lifetime at this. There's people here that have grown up with it, and there's people here who are here for the first day. And it's a wonderful journey understanding biological farming and having the patience to actually realise the power of the farmer in the whole process as well. And I don't mean to be too vague on this, but the power of good intention, the power of sometimes doing nothing and actually looking at the results of doing nothing in a place and seeing that the place you did nothing is actually better than the place you did something, and having the patience and the tolerance, again, to forgive yourself and to allow that, sometimes, because sometimes we're guilty, or we feel guilt, or we feel guilty conscious for doing nothing. So that's part of the whole process of biological farming for me as well.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Kenny?
Yeah, well, I'm Kenny Roberts from Rathangan in Kildare, and I'm a dairy and beef farmer. And I suppose my first, before DANÚ, I suppose a neighbour of mine would have done some comprehensive soil tests and was telling me all about the calcium to magnesium ratio and all this, and I was like, I haven't a clue about any of this. Look, I would have gone to Teagasc dairy discussion groups. I just would have followed that whole the green book as such. So I suppose farming had, for me, it had become a bit prescriptive. So I was I wouldn't say I was disillusioned, but I had a lot of questions as well, especially when I was showing these soil tests. I just thought I wanted to know more, so then I suppose I would have got a few tests done, but didn't really know what they meant or what to do with them. I mean, I understood a little bit, all right, but I suppose then David had been our Teagasc advisor previously, and just was in touch with him, and he said he was thinking about an EIP project, and would I like to be involved. So I jumped at the chance, and look, I won't go into I think Stuart has said what the trial plots were, but the amount, from the knowledge that I would have had about soil health or soil biology to what I have now, it's like day and night, So over the 5 years, we would have, I'd say on my farm, I've reduced I'm still a conventional dairy farmer, but I've reduced my nitrogen inputs by over 50%. I suppose that's, there's treating slurry and doing other things probably that we should have been doing before now. But that's my experience.
Yeah, and you've reduced that nitrogen as well by 50% with no impact on yield, I can see, in terms of output of grass production.
No.
Yeah.
No. Because on as the lad said there, we would have kept a Teagasc plot, so it would have got a bag of, can or pasture sward after every rotation, and I would have been measuring grass, so it was getting, say, 27 units of nitrogen. Now on my on the DANÚ, even, so that's, say, plot 1. On plot 2, then plot 2 kind of as it was we kind of made our own mind up what we want to do. So it kind of started off by putting out fertilizer and then going spraying molasses on as a carbon source. But over time, that kind of evolved into liquid fertilizer with a carbon source. And the first carbon source we would have used was molasses, which is a little bit messy. So eventually, that just morphed into humic acid. And I actually found that I've been able to reduce over the years. I've been able to reduce that amount of nitrogen. But on the plot 3 and 4, we just used foliar nitrogen, and started off with probably cutting it back to 6 units, which for the first probably year and a half was probably a little bit too low. I think you just need to start dropping in stages. But at the moment now it's 6 units in application with a few maybe trace elements and a little bit of biology for plot 4. But it's actually growing a ton more than the conventional chagas plot consistently over the last 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, Ken. And Mick?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Costello. I'm local to here, so a Limerick person. I'm a beef finisher, pretty intensive. Probably started down this road in 2016, 17 when I joined Base Ireland, and that's where I kind of came into contact with some of the people in the DANÚ group. Go back to 2016, 17, we were noticing more problems, animal health issues, and that were being caused by intensive management of the land. A lot of my land was managed very similar to a very intensive dairy farmer, so we'd have high levels of nitrogen, and we were seeing that we weren't getting the animal performance from the higher levels of nitrogen. So I have a huge interest in reducing nitrogen to as low as possible, and nitrogen use efficiency, just from an animal point of view and from a water point of view. Now I'm probably here mainly through financials, and I saw that this offered probably the best route for me from a financial point of view, maintaining margins that we had probably in the early 2000s going forward, because we had to de-risk somewhere. Everything was getting more and more expensive, so this seemed to offer me a route to go to where I wanted to take the farm to. By dropping our nitrogen levels so low, I'm a major believer in mineral balancing according to the all-rec system, and getting the calcium-magnesium ratios right, and getting our sulfur levels up. And by doing that, we've dropped the nitrogen to probably about 30 units a year, which should be down from, it could have been a 250, go back 7 or 8 years ago. And we've probably seen some drop in actual growth of grass, but I would say the nutrient density of the grass is probably giving us the same performance again. So the animals need to eat less to get the same performance benefit. It does work. I have a lot of friends, or I have neighbours that say they can't finish cattle without grain around me, and we finish most of our animals without grain, without any issues. Probably also, I was also very interested in composting, because we had a lot of animal waste. So yeah, it was a natural fit in that I joined the project when I did. I remember at the very start I said to David Wallace that P1, which is what we're supposed to be managing, the same as Chagas, would be probably a plot that we'd actually grow to hate, and I think nearly everyone in the project despises it now. So I'm finished up with we're finishing up this November, so yeah, I'm going to change that straight away anyway. Yeah. That's for sure, because you just look at it, and it was just such hard work to get it done, because it meant working. I don't like work. So just to try and maintain things to the P1 Chagas standard is not easy.
Yeah. Very good. Donald, maybe I might ask you to just give, because you were involved in another EIP as well. You actually managed another EIP. Yeah. So your involvement in this particular one?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donald Sheehan. I'm a dairy farmer from Castlines. So my involvement was, David asked me 4 or 5 years ago at the start of the project to know would I like to get involved, and for me, for years before that, soil was always something I felt very uncomfortable about, because I absolutely knew nothing what was going on underneath the ground, and probably didn't want to know, because the education piece about soil wasn't very, it's not very easy to get. And so when I was asked to join the DANÚ project, I was absolutely delighted at long last that I could get a kind of a hands-on information and advice from experts. One of the first things we were asked to do when the application came out, David sent out a form for all of us, and one of the paragraphs was, what do you want from this project? And I would always say that I would have been one of the weakest links, I'd say, of the 12 lads that were in it. I felt always so far behind with regard to soil and soil knowledge, but I said I just wanted to reduce chemicals completely from the farming system. Very, very simple. Nothing else, just reduce chemicals, whether it's fertilizers, anthelmintics, dairy washes, anything at all. I just wanted them out of the system really, but certainly reduced. And what the project did for me was it just empowered me to get the knowledge and the advice and to give me the confidence that there was an alternative. So in, I'd say 2017-18 at the start, we would have been using, I'd say about 20 tonne of artificial nitrogen every year. 2 years ago, that was down to 9 tonne. It was a tonne last year, and I'd say that'll be it now. I hope, don't hold me to that now, but it will be. The tonne this year actually was the crutch. It's so difficult when you're in an intensive system to get off of that, the drug that's artificial nitrogen. And as well as that, when you're not getting kind of hands-on advice, the general advice from the agri sector is, use nitrogen. And it's so easy to get that advice, and it's so easy to get. You have to really be prepared to change your mindset to go against the grain, really. And that's what the project did for me. And listening to the other lads was invaluable, because we were all in the same journey. And it was great to meet like-minded farmers. And it's not very often you kind of have to handpick them. And you can see the crowd that are here today, that there is a movement going down that road of moving away from the system we're on. There's something wrong with this system. The distance between where we produce food and the people that are buying it. And there's a movement happening, and it's gathering momentum all the time. And I think we're all on this journey to try and become closer to the people that buy our food, and to kind of see what they want and try and deliver on that. And that's where I'm at the moment. And with regard to the outcome of what I was doing, definitely the stock are healthier. When you in the springtime, anyone that's dairy farming, especially in the conventional system, you are on high nitrogen, and the dung becomes, it's unhealthy, and it's not, the consistency of it is quite liquidy, and you just know. And it never sat well with me to put out artificial nitrogen, and you're like, at this stage, I'd be like a smoker. You'd be nearly condemning anyone out that's on nitrogen. You're going to go the opposite way. But there's huge benefits, and I'm only just beginning to see them. But at least I feel I have more knowledge now than I ever had, and probably enough knowledge to keep me going, so that the wheels won't fall off the wagon.
Okay. David, I know you said to me before we were organising this that you wanted to let the farmers talk, but crucially, your role is pivotal in all of this. You worked with Teagasc as a dairy advisor. You obviously saw a need for something in this area when you were formulating the EIP and designing it. What were you thinking about? I know you've asked yourself that question every year since it started, but...
Well, I think first off, to be fair to Teagasc, right, and just to mention in the Teagasc Green Book, for what it is, it's an excellent reference for the NPK system, and I cannot fault it in any way.
Yeah.
And that has to be made clear, and I don't think there was an inference from anybody in DANÚ on that. And the second thing is, we have to be very realistic about the existing structure of our commercial agriculture. And farmers, by the very nature of the work they do, are naturally risk adverse. And there has to be a complete understanding and sympathy, and I'm using that word correctly, not on an emotional level, but on a sheer pragmatic level, of people who have bought into an intensification of their farming systems, where the cows are stressed, they're not lasting. The number of lactations has not gone up, it's gone down, right? In 30 years, there's been no movement forward in the number of lactations per cow on average. Now, a component of that is the fact of the intense breeding season in the typical spring calving system. But if we take that component out, if you like, where cows who don't breed within 6-8 weeks, they're out of the system because they can't be carried. They're not falling into an autumn herd as there would be in a liquid milk system. So there's no economic justification for carrying them through. But when you take that component out, it still doesn't address the fact that lactation numbers are not up at 5, 6, 7, and 8.
And you saw this on a daily basis.
And
I
I began to question. I was involved a lot in intensive dairy and liquid milk in particular, as well as spring milk, doing a lot of diets and doing them reasonably successfully for high-yielding herds. But yeah, without dwelling on that too much, I just reached a point where I just couldn't. The fact that the feral cow or the natural cow lives to 15 or 16 years of age, the reason those cows die is they start losing their molar teeth. And that means they can't efficiently ruminate. And that's why they die, right? And it's the termination of their life in a natural process, whereas we're losing cows at 6, 7, and 8 years of age in this system, and it doesn't make sense. Despite, obviously the intensification is there, irrespective of what, the fact that we're taking a cow in and milking it in a system for our benefit does put a different pressure on it, but it's too extreme. And I moved on from Teagasc, and I was sort of in the wilderness for a couple of years, and I got involved in putting, I never studied as hard in my life on soils, soil testing, soil biology. I really, really put as much effort in as I could, and I had the time to do it. I was very fortunate that I just had a break for a couple of years where I could put that time in. I put a couple of soil courses together, farmer courses, and they were well attended. I seem to have confused more people than I got tuned into it at times. But the gist of that, the bones of a project came out of it, and subsequently the EIP came up. But just on a comment, we tried to do it as farmers, and we set the trial plots up as farmers' trial plots.
Yeah.
And
this is very simple design, isn't it?
Very simple design, and the most important thing is for nobody to misunderstand that the academic rigor that would be in a normal research project does not exist in this EIP. It's a farmer trial, so the number of parameters that you would need to control if you were to do this on a strict academic basis would be phenomenal, and you would be looking at least €6 million to do this over the 5 years. And I'm not being anyway facetious about that, because the number of parameters that you would want to be actually accounting for each of the different plot systems at field size basis. They weren't small trial plots; they were field trial plots. And the key issue was that by year 3, what every single farmer in the project was learning of their own volition, they weren't being paid. That was a deliberate decision. It was very, very
serious
rare.
about that?
Yes, and
Is that right, lads? You didn't receive a penny?
Not a penny. And that goes against the whole scheme culture in Ireland. Because schemes like
the
whole, like
system,
there's a scheme going, lads, we better, and we put oceans of energy into schemes. And yes, most of them are very, very appropriate, well constructed, etc., etc. But when you're in a system where you're paid to do something, you now have an obligation. And you have an obligation to fulfill the criteria that are being asked of you, right?
Yeah.
And we wanted, as an innovation project, to completely dismember that notion and actually put the power, literally, into the farmer's hands. And if a farmer turned around and said, and Michael had his issue with plot 1, I don't want to do certain things like that. And I said, well, you choose what you choose to do. Just make a note of it. And that's how we work. But the extraordinary thing was, by the end of year 3, every one of the 12 farmers, and I called them at the time the 12 disciples, with the hope that they'd ultimately become 12 apostles, and I think they have, in that they actually took, given how risk adverse this was, after 2 seasons of looking at the distinction between plots 1 and 4, and the results weren't dramatic. The soils weren't suddenly leaping out of the ground and saying everything is wonderful, but their intuition and their instinctive, natural feel for it, they all started putting what they were learning from plot 4 into practice on all the farms.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that really spoke for itself, because nobody forced them to do that. And when we did the baseline data, we did full comprehensive soil tests. They cost €380 each. Full tests. We did the full mineral test of the soil, what was in the parent material as well. We measured cobalt, chromium, the whole lot as the totals in the soil. We did a full Albrecht test, and then we did a Morgan's test. Not a single soil sample had any balance in it.
Yeah.
Not one.
Yeah.
We did a full biology test, biology assays across all the soils. Not one of them had a proper balance.
So all soils were suboptimal.
And we did water infiltration tests. Professor John Sweeney touched on it today, and I thought his presentation was excellent in relation to the issue of environment and climate change. But when we talk about what can we do, there is no escaping the fact that since the steel plough and the traction engine came about, it has been a major contribution to carbon dioxide historically, right? And we were not giving enough recognition to that, right? Is that this started since the Industrial Revolution, the increase in the level of carbon dioxide. And agriculture, the degrading of agriculture soils has made a major contribution to that. Now that contribution is being amplified by the fact that the water infiltration rates are collapsing. Yeah. You know that. You've done your work on that as well. And as a consequence of that, we've more water vapor moving up into the atmosphere. That water vapor is enhancing the negative effect that the extra carbon has had. So when we look at what we can do, if we can improve soil structure, soil crumb, porosity, because soil compaction is the major issue we have. And I'm talking too much now.
No, you're fine. But you actually brought up something there, which was the reduced number of lactation levels, right? And a number of the farmers actually mentioned it. I might ask Donal and Mike again, or Michael Costello. You mentioned animal health, and that one of the benefits that you've seen over the years has been a dramatic improvement in animal health. You were mentioning that, before you joined the project, you had observed that animal health had decreased and disimproved. How did that manifest itself from a practical point of view?
I will say it's more so from the amount of nitrogen we're trying to put through the animal is the issue I have.
Really?
And it was affecting performance. How much I can say animal health has improved, I'm not 100% sure, and a lot of that comes down to intensity and management. But definitely from a performance point of view, reducing nitrogen levels in the stomach is absolutely huge.
Yeah, okay. And same thing, Donal,
I was probably in 2017, I probably said it was an awful more aspirational on where we might get to with wormers and antibiotics and that. But you can only cut so far, because then there is a natural point that you have to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have found the same. David spoke about the number of lactations per animal. My number of lactations has gone up for the last 3 years, and anthelmintic use is going down.
Very good.
This is all, you really have to be prepared when you're not dosing animals. There's a danger, you're talking about parasites. And when I asked my supplier, I said, I don't need any dose this time. And he said, oh God, you want to be careful there now. So-and-so over the road, 5 of them died the other day. This is how you have to prepare your mindset.
Your minds, right, okay.
But bit by bit, we're down to, we actually didn't do any dose this year. And it's just doing fecal samples and keeping on top of the problem before it becomes a problem.
So good general husbandry.
Absolutely, and you're looking more carefully all the time, because I suppose you're anticipating a problem. You don't have the tool of anthelmintics or chemicals, so you're looking at the animal more carefully. Your stockmanship is a lot better because you're trying to see problems before they come.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of the results here, and it's kind of testament to the work and effort that you've done, but you're actually after achieving the objectives of the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy in that 5-year period, way before 2030, when the objectives are meant to be realised. So full credit to each and every one of you. Absolutely fantastic. David, you wanted to do
one last comment, and the strike rate of the shift to organic, 3 of the farmers have gone organic since the start of the project.
That's correct, 25% of the original group.
And there's no doubt about it, once one gets into the nuts and bolts of biological farming, I have no doubt about it, it makes it much easier then to seek into going into an organic situation if it suits you.
Okay, that's fantastic. All right, okay. Thanks very much, everybody. We're going to do a turnaround now.